I had a terrible fight with Adam Mahoney, the kind that shattered all pretense of civility. We tore into each other with words so sharp they left wounds, and by the end of it, I wished we could sever all ties for good, as if we had never met in this lifetime. But barely after our falling out, I found out I was pregnant. My face turned pale as I stared at the doctor in disbelief. "You must be mistaken." The doctor adjusted his glasses, his expression calm and unwavering. "No mistake." I gaped at him. "But I'm an alpha." He dropped the bombshell without hesitation. "Then your partner must be quite remarkable." Welcome to He History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. By the time I walked out of the hospital, clutching my test results, my entire world felt like it had been turned upside down. I took a few steps, then crouched by the side of the road, clutching my head in frustration. Passers-by shot me odd looks, as if I were some kind of lunatic. But none of that mattered, because what I had just learned was far more shocking than a few judgmental stares. I, an alpha, was pregnant. And to make matters worse, I had just had the ugliest, most disastrous breakup with the other father of this child. How bad was it? Bad enough that I'd sworn we'd never cross paths again in this lifetime. Adam Mahoney and I were both alphas. By all logic, we shouldn't have even been together. But, as the saying goes, beauty is a dangerous thing. I had been completely and utterly bewitched by his face. As if it weren't enough for him to have the kind of stunning looks that could topple empires, he had a damn beauty mark at the corner of his lips, just the perfect touch of allure. Alpha or not, I wanted him. Badly. So I chased him. Relentlessly. Used every trick in the book to win him over. But he was a high, unattainable flower on a distant cliff, refusing to be plucked. For half a month, I groveled, licked my wounds, and kept at it, but he remained unmoved. Then an opportunity presented itself, his susceptibility period. Finally I thought, my moment had come. And yet, even in his weakened state, he somehow had the energy to fight me off. Worse, he won. I had gone in expecting to hold a delicate beauty in my arms. Instead, I ended up being the one held down. Fine. That was acceptable too. The art of pursuing a lover required patience, after all. Sometimes, you had to give a little to get what you wanted. And it worked. After that incident, Adam Mahoney didn't ignore me anymore. In fact, he even treated me rather well. But then a problem arose. Why was I the one always getting pinned down? That wasn't part of the plan. The plan was for me to be the one in control. I tried again and again to turn the tables, but every time I challenged him, I lost. And then came our worst fight yet. You're unbelievable. I'm an alpha. I've already swallowed my pride and let you do it this many times. Can't you let me have a turn for once? Adam crossed his arms, a smirk curling at his lips. Did I ever force you? Who was the one who clung to me relentlessly? Who tried to take advantage of me during my susceptibility period? He sneered, voice dripping with disdain. You knew exactly what you were doing. Now you want to act like some kind of victim? Who are you putting on this show for? His words cut deep, not because they were wrong, but because they were painfully, brutally right. Still, I refused to back down. I'm an alpha too. I can't just be on the bottom forever. Adam turned on his heel and walked away. Adam Mahoney, you bastard. I shouted after him. Fine. If you walk out that door, I'll pretend we never met. We'll never see each other again. I won't make a fool of myself over you ever again. His hand hesitated for just a fraction of a second on the doorknob. But only for a second. Then he said, suit yourself. And with that, the door slammed shut. I was furious. That very night, I blocked his number, deleted every trace of him from my life, and swore to reclaim my dignity as a proper alpha. But what kind of proper alpha ended up pregnant with another alpha's child? As much as I hated to admit it, I had no choice. I had to find Adam. I couldn't tell my parents. They'd lose their minds. So I gritted my teeth, unblocked him, and sent him a message. Red exclamation mark. So he had blocked me too. If I couldn't reach him through my phone, I'd just find him in person. So I waited for him on his usual route home from work. When he saw me, he didn't even bat an eye. He simply walked right past me, as if I were nothing. I stepped in front of him, blocking his path. Wait. Still, he didn't look at me directly. Alexander Pickering, he said coolly, didn't you say we'd never see each other again? That you wouldn't make a fool of yourself over me anymore? I clenched my teeth. Damn him. But I didn't have time to argue. I have something important to tell you. His lips quirked into an amused smirk. What, another one of your little tricks? I had used every excuse under the sun to get him to meet up before. But this wasn't a trick. I hesitated, biting my lip. Adam's patience was wearing thin. Seeing that he was about to walk away, I blurted out, I'm pregnant. His brows furrowed slightly as if trying to process my words. I swallowed hard, watching him anxiously. A beat of silence passed. Then he let out a low scoff. Alexander, are you trying to make me jealous? You really think I'd fall for such a cheap trick just to get my attention? God, this insufferable egotistical. I snapped. Jealous my ass. It's your damn kid. Adam looked at me as if I had just grown a second head. His mouth twitched slightly. Don't tell me, you, in alpha, got pregnant. I knew how ridiculous it sounded. But it was the truth. I wordlessly handed him the test results. See for yourself. Believe it or not, this is the situation. So tell me, how are we going to handle this? Adam frowned, staring at the paper for a long while. Finally, he clicked his tongue and asked, Have you told your parents yet? Not yet. He let out a sigh, pinching the bridge of his nose in frustration. Go home. Tell them. Wait for me. I blinked. Wait for what? He was already walking away, leaving only his back to me as he threw out a single word. Proposal. What? Was he seriously thinking of taking responsibility? Of making me keep this child? I rushed after him. Wait. We could just, get rid of it? Adam stopped in his tracks. Then, to my utter confusion, he let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Alexander Pickering, he said, shaking his head, I've never met anyone as flippant as you. And with that, he walked away, leaving me stunned and speechless. What the hell was that supposed to mean? How was I flippant? Damn it. Getting involved with him was the worst luck I'd had. That night at dinner, I carefully observed my parents' expressions. They seemed to be in a fairly good mood. I picked at my food, selecting only the lightest dishes, but halfway through the meal, my mother placed a piece of braised pork rib onto my plate. The mere smell of it turned my stomach. I couldn't even think about eating it, so I quietly picked it up and returned it to her bowl. My mother frowned in confusion. Why aren't you eating? You love ribs. I hesitated before saying, I just can't stomach it. Her eyes narrowed. She knew something was off. Very off. You're not feeling well? She pressed. My father also looked over at me, his expression shifting to one of concern. I let out a deep sigh. There was no avoiding this. Setting down my chopsticks, I said, I have something to tell you, but you both have to promise me, no getting angry. My parents exchanged a glance before fixing their eyes on me, waiting. I took a moment to compose myself. Then, as calmly as possible, I said, I'm pregnant. Silence. The kind of silence where you could hear a pin drop. My mother looked frozen. My father wasn't doing much better. After what felt like an eternity, my mother finally spoke, her voice filled with disbelief. Pregnant? Who's pregnant? Did you get someone pregnant? Or did someone get you pregnant? I took a deep breath and repeated, I'm pregnant. My mother's face went blank, her mind still struggling to process the information. My father quickly interjected, Are you sure? Alexander, this isn't a joke, you're an alpha. I nodded. I'm sure. 100%. That shut them both up. The silence stretched on as they tried to wrap their heads around this absurd reality. Finally, my mother exhaled deeply. And whose child is it? Adam Mahoney's. Both of them stiffened at the same time. Adam's parents and mine were old colleagues. They still kept in touch regularly. This situation had just escalated to a whole new level of ridiculousness. My mother let out another long sigh. Does Adam know? What did he say? I scratched my nose awkwardly. He said he'd come to propose. I was pretty sure, at that moment, my parents were questioning if they were still asleep. After a long round of questioning about how the hell Adam and I even ended up together, I told them everything. In the end, both of them gave me the same verdict. You had this coming. I wanted to cry. The next day, Adam Mahoney arrived with his parents. He had actually dressed up for the occasion, looking proper and respectable, though I knew better. While they talked in the living room, I stayed in the dining area, eavesdropping from the sidelines. It was mostly polite talk. Our families knew each other well, and since fate had somehow brought Adam and me together, it only made sense to get the wedding arranged as soon as possible before my pregnancy started showing. I zoned in and out of their conversation, casually sipping a glass of water. Then, all of a sudden, Adam turned toward me, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "Alexander, come here." I nearly choked on my drink. What the hell? Since when did he call me that so sweetly? And that smile on his face, it was so fake it was insulting. He wanted to play this game? Fine. Two could play. I set my glass down, plastered on the most obnoxiously smug smile I could manage, and sauntered over, deliberately dragging out my words. I'm coming." The moment those words left my lips, Adam's entire expression stiffened. I was willing to bet that if no one else were around, his eye would have twitched on the spot. I sat down next to him and blinked at him innocently. Feigning warmth, Adam took my hand, but I felt the slight pressure of his grip. Translation: cut it out. I raised an eyebrow at him, completely unfazed. Then, just to be extra annoying, I leaned into him, all but draping myself over his side. His body went rigid, but with our parents watching, there was nothing he could do. Serves him right for calling me shameless. I'd show him just how shameless I could be. My parents were staring at me like they didn't know who I was anymore. Adam's father, ever the diplomat, laughed heartily. "Ha, look at them. Clearly, they get along well. There's nothing to worry about." My parents chuckled stiffly, but I could tell those smiles were forced. From there, the conversation mostly revolved around wedding preparations and other trivial details. I stayed slouched against Adam, half listening, growing increasingly bored. At some point I must have dozed off. The next thing I knew, I was being carried. Blinking groggily, I found myself in Adam's arms as he laid me down on my bed. I yawned, rubbing my eyes. "Are you guys done talking?" Instead of answering, he smirked down at me. "You're not calling me nads now? Still hung up on that?" I grinned lazily, sensing an opportunity to mess with him. "If you really want," I drawled, "I can call you something else." I stretched out the last word obnoxiously. "Husband." The second-hand embarrassment was so bad I almost gagged. Adam didn't react for a moment. Then, without a word, he turned on his heel and walked out of the room. The moment he was gone, I burst into laughter, rolling on my bed, clutching my stomach. He'd brought this on himself. The wedding day arrived before I knew it, and a lot of people showed up. What annoyed me the most, though, was that I was assigned the so-called Omega role in the ceremony. Sure, we were both wearing white suits, but that wasn't the point. By all logic, Adam Mahoney looked more like an Omega than I did. Though, yeah, maybe that was a bit of a stereotype. But what could I do? I was the one who got pregnant. The one who got pinned down. I'd endure it. For now. But just wait, Adam Mahoney. Your time is coming. The ceremony went through the usual motions. When the officiant recited the vows, I cringed so hard I got goosebumps, while Adam stood there looking completely at ease. Then came the ring exchange. The ring bearer approached, and just as Adam reached for the rings, I snatched them up first. He shot me a puzzled look. I lowered my voice, feeling a bit awkward. And, for a moment, I thought I heard a quiet chuckle from him, resigned, amused. But he still obediently extended his hand. I slipped the ring onto his finger. Much better. I didn't even know what I was trying to prove, but at least I got to put the ring on him first. When it was his turn, he took my hand, sliding the ring onto my finger with a faint, lingering smirk. I had no idea what he was smiling about, but I didn't like it. Then came the kiss. I tilted my head up slightly to meet his gaze. He cupped my face, leaned in and kissed me. And somehow, just like that, I was on the losing side again. His lips parted against mine, and suddenly, there was something sweet on my tongue. When we pulled apart, I was dazed. Because in my mouth was a candy. A blueberry mint candy, cool and refreshing, sending a tingling sensation straight to my head. His scent. His scented candy. I stared at him in disbelief. He only smiled. Just a little something to keep you awake. Who the hell gives someone a candy infused with their own pheromones to keep them awake? That was absolutely cheating. He was definitely trying to mess with me. But for some reason, I didn't want the candy to dissolve so quickly. I wanted the taste to linger. Unfortunately, he'd already sucked away half of it before passing it over, so all I got was a small remnant of the flavor. As we linked arms and moved on to the toast, I watched him handle the crowd effortlessly, gracious, charming, responding to every guest with the perfect words. He looked so proper, so composed, so warm. Yet, this was a man who kept people at arm's length, never truly revealing what went on in his mind. Still, knowing the danger, knowing how untouchable he was, I couldn't stop myself from being drawn in. But whatever. I liked him. That was the truth. I had already fallen for this beautiful, impossible man. By the time the banquet finally ended and we could go home, I was exhausted. The moment I collapsed onto the bed, every muscle in my body relaxed. But after lying there for a while, a strange sense of restlessness crept in. Starting today, I was going to be living with Adam Mahoney. But the bastard had grabbed his pillow and gone straight to the guest room. What kind of person sleeps in a separate bed on the first night of their wedding? Even if he didn't like me, this was too much. And what was with the candy during the kiss? Wasn't that basically flirting? For some reason, the taste still lingered on my tongue, pulling me back into the moment. I replayed it again and again until, damn it, I wanted to smell him again. This is ridiculous. Alphas weren't supposed to react to another alpha's scent like this. We were supposed to repel each other, supposed to get irritated, supposed to feel sick. And yet here I was, craving it. Unacceptable. I sat up. If he didn't want to share a bed, then I was going to make him miserable instead. So I grabbed my pillow and marched straight to the guest room. When Adam opened the door, he blinked at me in surprise. He looked me up and down before raising an eyebrow. What, are you planning to wander the streets? I was already in a foul mood, so I ignored his sarcasm and pushed past him, climbing straight into his bed. His warmth was still there in the blankets. And damn, his bed was way cozier than the one in the master bedroom. Lying there, all snug and comfortable, I sighed in satisfaction. Adam, still standing at the door, let out a short laugh. Half amused, half exasperated. What's gotten into you? He asked. What, did you miss me already? So in love with me that you couldn't bear to be apart? God, what an insufferable bastard. But fine. If he wanted to play, I'd play. I rolled over, propping myself up with a smirk. Yeah, I said shamelessly. I missed you so much. Couldn't stand being without you. Felt lonely, cold, restless. I had to come find you. His expression froze. What? I patted the space beside me, voice dripping with honeyed sweetness. So, husband, come keep me company. You wouldn't want me to lose sleep, would you? That wouldn't be good for the baby. I dragged out the words husband, making it sound as obnoxiously saccharine as possible. For a moment, I thought I saw an actual glitch in Adam's brain processing. His face cycled through an entire color spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, before finally settling into a deep, dark shade of annoyed as hell. Wordlessly, he shut the door and walked over. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he sighed as if resigning himself to fate. I really am cursed, he muttered. 8 lifetimes of bad karma, all leading to this? I grinned, rolling onto my back, completely satisfied. Glad you finally realized. Adam Mahoney lay beside me, reaching out to switch off the bedside lamp. I quickly grabbed his hand. He sighed, exasperated. Now what? Seizing the moment, I reached out, pulled down the collar of his sleep shirt, and peeled off the scent-blocking patch covering his gland. The faintest trace of alpha pheromones seeped into the air, barely noticeable. Adam jolted. What the hell are you doing? I pressed myself against him, lips quirking up. Nothing. Just being a little shameless. With that, I dipped my head closer to his neck, inhaling deeply near his gland. It was probably a weird thing to do. Maybe even borderline perverse. But he was my husband. What was wrong with me wanting to smell him? As soon as I took a proper whiff, the sharp scent hit my nerves, making me instinctively tense. My grip on his shoulder tightened. But then, as the cool freshness of his scent settled in, the initial restlessness faded, smoothing over into something oddly soothing. It felt like a war between instinct and desire. Alphas weren't supposed to crave other alphas. It went against everything ingrained in our biology. But falling in love with one? That was breaking instinct entirely. And once I crossed that line, I was addicted. I let out a quiet, frustrated sigh and muttered under my breath, "This is all your fault, turning me into some kind of freak that craves an alpha's scent." Adam went completely still. His breathing grew heavier, more uneven. Then, in one swift motion, he tried to break free and sit up. I caught his arm, not letting him go. "Where do you think you're going?" Under the dim light, I saw it. His ears were red. Adam gritted his teeth. "Are you seriously asking? What the hell do you think?" For a second, my brain blanked. Then, realization crashed over me like a tidal wave. My mind buzzed. My face burned. I stammered. Adam made another move to leave. I yanked him back. He shot me an irritated, baffled look. What now? I had provoked him all night. I couldn't just leave him like this. I hesitated before mumbling, "Well, I technically shouldn't be doing anything right now, given my condition." Adam narrowed his eyes. I swallowed, then sighed dramatically. "But," I continued, "I'm feeling extra generous tonight, so I'll help you out in a different way." And before he could react, I grabbed him by the wrist and dragged him back onto the bed. By the time everything was over, Adam had an arm around me, body heat radiating off him like a furnace. I was exhausted, my mind hazy. The guest room bed was a lot smaller than the one in the master bedroom. But somehow it was just the right size. One bed. One me. One him. That oversized, empty bed in the master bedroom couldn't compare. Here, the space was so small that no matter how much distance we tried to keep, we'd end up close. I liked it that way. So I tightened my hold around him, hugging him even closer. The next morning, Adam went to work. I, on the other hand, slept in until way too late. Maybe it was the pregnancy, but I felt like I could nap for days. Dragging my half-asleep self out of bed, I ate a little something before checking my phone. There was a message from my friends. They wanted to meet up. I hesitated. I knew they'd interrogate me about the sudden marriage. But it had been a while since we all got together, so I pulled myself together, freshened up, and headed out. As soon as I stepped into the private booth at the bar, the questions started flying. One of them leaned in, smirking. "Alright, spill. When the hell did you snag Adam the Beautiful?" I sighed. I just helped him a few times." My friend raised a brow. "And helping led to feelings?" I rubbed the back of my neck. "Hard to say. Who knew if Adam was even in this marriage for me and not just out of obligation?" My friend looked baffled. "Then why would he marry you if he doesn't have feelings for you?" "Maybe because of the baby," I admitted. Dead silence. Everyone stared at me like I had just announced I was moving to Mars. Then, one of them practically shouted, "You two have a kid?" I winced. Not so loud. Another friend shook his head in disbelief. Damn. You really pulled it off, huh? Got an alpha pregnant? That's legendary." I sighed and corrected him. "I'm the one who's pregnant." Someone who had been mid-drink spat their alcohol out. Wiping his mouth, he gawked at me. "Wait, you're pregnant?" The other's eyes widened in shock. If I could, I would have clapped a hand over his mouth to shut him up. Defeated, I collapsed onto the couch. Sensing that I was growing very done with the conversation, one of my friends awkwardly laughed, trying to smooth things over. "Honestly, we're just surprised. We all thought you'd be the one, on top." Fair assumption. Adam did look more like the delicate type, at least by alpha standards. Pale, almost ghostly white skin, like he had never seen the sun. Eyes half-lidded, always giving off that distant, unreadable aura, like he was effortlessly in control of every situation. And that damn beauty mark near his lips? Ridiculously seductive. Without realizing it, I found myself lost in thought, mentally replaying every single detail of his face. It took someone calling my name to snap me out of it. I chuckled, suddenly feeling lighter. "You guys don't get it," I said, stretching lazily. "This is what it means to be a real man. I just can't bear to let him suffer." My friends stared. I continued smugly, "So what if I'm not on top? So what if I'm the one pregnant? The kid's still gonna call me dad, isn't he? Because even if Adam had been the one to carry the child, I wouldn't have let him go through it alone. And besides, this wasn't just about his stupidly pretty face. I liked him. A lot. And if I was going to fall for a rare, spoiled, high-maintenance beauty like him, well, I'd just have to spoil him properly." My friends were quiet for a beat. Then, one of them raised a glass to me with a look of genuine admiration. "Well damn, that's some real commitment." I smirked but didn't say anything. What was I supposed to tell them? That every time I tried to flip the tables, I lost spectacularly? That I had tried and failed so many times that I had just learned to accept my fate? Some things were better left unsaid. Most of the people at the gathering were old classmates, friends from school, now all with jobs, some even with families of their own. I supposed I had a family now too. Since it was rare for so many of us to get together, I stayed a little longer than planned, chatting and messing around. The music was loud, the singing was terrible, and the whole place was buzzing with noise. So I didn't notice my phone vibrating. I'd put it on silent earlier to avoid being disturbed while sleeping. And that's how I missed over 10 missed calls from Adam Mahoney. The moment I saw my screen, my heart sank. I hastily said my goodbyes and rushed out to catch a cab home. When I got back, the apartment was dark. For a second, I thought no one was home. Then I flipped on the lights and nearly jumped out of my skin. Because there, sitting on the couch, was Adam Mahoney. He was staring at me. Just staring. I had no idea how long he had been doing that. Maybe since he heard the door open. Maybe even longer. He didn't say a word. Just kept looking. For some reason, it made me nervous. But then I reminded myself, I hadn't done anything wrong. I wasn't out cheating on him. So why should I feel guilty? I forced a relaxed smile and strolled over to sit beside him, testing the waters as I reached for his arm. "Babe," I coaxed lightly. "Why didn't you turn on the lights?" He pulled away. Didn't let me touch him. "Oh, so you still remember I'm your husband?" His voice was deceptively calm. "You don't pick up. You don't reply. Not even a single text. Incredible. For a second, I thought you forgot you even had a home to come back to." But he's pissed. I pouted slightly. That was my bad. It was too loud. I didn't hear my phone. I swear I didn't do it on purpose. Adam turned to look at me, and to my surprise, he laughed. But it was a sharp, self-mocking kind of laugh. "You really don't get it, do you?" His tone shifted, the edge of frustration cutting through. "You're pregnant, and I had no idea where you were. You disappeared without a word. What if something happened? Do you have any idea how worried I was? You don't even think about that, do you? You don't get what it means to have a family. Tell me, Alexander, what the hell do you think I am? What do you think our child is? Or do you only care about your fun?" His words hit me like a slap. For a moment, I just sat there, stunned, the weight of his anger sinking in. I had messed up. But come on, was it really that big a deal? I had even bragged about him to my friends earlier. And now, here he was, throwing a full-blown tantrum. I scowled. "What do you mean I only care about my fun?" I muttered under my breath. He definitely heard me. He exhaled sharply. "Isn't that what it is? Alexander, I thought I could trust you. I thought you were serious about this." His jaw tensed. "But at the end of the day, you're still the same reckless idiot you've always been. You can't even properly apologize. One day, you're gonna drive me insane." That was it. That set me off. I had loved this man, spoiled him, treated him like gold. And this was what I got? Over one mistake, he was acting like I'd committed some unforgivable crime. Like I was the only one who had ever messed up. I felt a sting at the back of my nose, the kind that came right before tears, but I refused to cry. You've got to be kidding me, I snapped. Oh, you're the only one who gets to feel wronged, huh? I already apologized. What the hell do you want from me? You want to talk about responsibilities? Then answer this, Adam. Why the hell did you marry me? You gonna sit here and tell me it wasn't because of the baby? You really think you're that noble? I didn't wait for his response. Didn't give him a chance to speak. I stormed upstairs and slammed the bedroom door shut. Like hell I was sharing a bed with him tonight. Two grown men arguing like this, it was ridiculous. But I'd said it. And maybe I needed to. Because if the baby was all that mattered to him, then I wasn't going to spend my life chained to this marriage. I thought we'd end up in a cold war for the next 2 or 3 days. That was usually how our fights went. But after lying in bed, tossing and turning for a while, I heard footsteps. Getting closer. I quickly shut my eyes and pretended to sleep. The door creaked open. I could feel him standing beside the bed. Then, after a long pause, he sighed. Alexander, are you awake? I made a small noise, shifting under the covers. Adam hesitated. Then quietly he said, I shouldn't have yelled. That was my fault. Don't be mad at me, okay? I froze. He admitted he was wrong? Mr. I'm never wrong, Mr. Too Cool Care. This Adam Mahoney? He apologized? I flipped over in shock. What? Adam averted his gaze, clearly uncomfortable. I stared at him, suspicious. What did you just say? His voice was oddly patient when he repeated himself, slow and careful. I shouldn't have been so harsh. I should have asked you properly instead of snapping at you. Then, with the softest voice I'd ever heard from him. Please don't be mad at me, okay? You're still pregnant. It's not good for you to be upset. So it was for the baby. My stomach twisted. I rolled away from him, voice dripping with sarcasm. Wow. You actually apologized. All for the baby, huh? I made sure to emphasize for the baby. He sighed again. Then I felt the bed dip, felt his arms circle around me. His breath was warm against my neck, his voice quiet. It's not just for the baby. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. But, overpowering. Like a drumbeat, rattling my brain. He had clarified. He clarified. This smug, emotionally constipated bastard. He finally dropped the act. My voice was muffled against the pillow. If it's not because of the baby, then why? You better make it clear, Adam. Just because we're married doesn't mean we have to stay that way. I don't necessarily have to spend my whole damn life with you. Adam let out a quiet laugh. He pulled one hand out from under the blanket and ruffled my hair. Because of you, he said. I married you because I like you. I wanted this child because you are the one carrying it. I got angry because I was worried about you. Everything that has to do with you, everything, revolves around you. Nothing else matters. Because I fell in love with you. A long time ago, the world went quiet. All that remained was the sound of my heartbeat. I had once prayed, though I didn't know to whom, for love to find me. And now here it was. Arriving. I grumbled, oh, now you have a way with words? So all those times I swallowed my pride and put up with your bullshit, what do those count for? You always had that high and mighty attitude, making me chase after you like some shameless fool. Now you soften up once, and I'm just supposed to drop everything? Damn, Adam, your apologies must be worth a fortune. Adam laughed, loud, unrestrained, as if I had just told the funniest joke in the world. He playfully tugged at my nose, not hard, more like he was teasing me. You know what I realized? He mused. I'm arrogant, but you're even more arrogant. Neither of us ever backs down, which is why we always end up fighting so ugly. You say you've put up with me? Fine. How about this? From now on, I'll be the one putting up with you. I huffed. It's not about who puts up with who. Adam immediately cut me off. All right. No need to explain. I get it. It's not putting up with each other. It's compromise, isn't it? Because I love you and you love me. He really had it all figured out, huh? Even though I had just heard exactly what I wanted, I still felt the urge to hit him. So I elbowed him, making him let out a pained hiss. Maybe it was true. When you were loved, you got reckless with it. With my newfound boldness, I shot back, Then what the hell were you doing before? Letting me grovel all over you for fun? Adam coughed awkwardly. Then, after a moment, he said, marriage is a lifelong commitment. If I'm going to be with you forever, then I need to take full responsibility. For everything. Including your feelings. That shut me up. I didn't say anything. Just held on to him. Sleep came quickly. It was deep and my dreams were long. From that day on, something shifted between us. It was hard to describe, but it was like our roles had flipped. Adam was no longer that cold, hard-to-please bastard who always acted above it all. Now I was the one giving him a hard time. Every now and then, I'd tease him just to see his reaction. Most of the time, he'd let me. But he did have a limit. If I ever joked about flipping the script and getting on top after giving birth, his face would immediately go stiff. That's not happening. Oh, I got it now. Adam Mahoney was the type that couldn't be spoiled too much. The moment you gave him an inch, he'd take a mile. But so was I. Still, love was about compromise, right? He said it himself. So I accepted his affection without guilt. Pregnancy wasn't easy. But if there was one thing I couldn't complain about, Adam took meticulous care of me. The man went above and beyond. Hell, there were days when the first thing I saw after waking up was his face hovering over mine, asking if I needed help sitting up. He even put my socks on for me. When the time came, I had to go in for a scheduled C-section. Even though everything had been prepared in advance, Adam still checked everything over a dozen times. Watching him fuss over the hospital bag, I couldn't help but laugh. He caught my expression and frowned. What? You do realize all that stuff has been packed for weeks, right? I teased. His lips pressed into a firm line. I can't give birth for you, so the least I can do is make sure everything else is perfect. I need to show the universe that I'm serious about this. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, I thought you didn't believe in that kind of thing. He shook his head. Not anymore, he said. No, I only believe in you. It was a beta girl. A daughter. The moment I saw her, I fell in love. Since we hadn't known the baby's gender beforehand, we had bought clothes and supplies in every possible color. But I had known. I told you she'd be a girl, I bragged to Adam. I had a feeling. He scoffed. You sound possessed. And yet, when she was a girl, he had nothing left to say. I smirked at him. Oh, what was that about me being possessed? Look at her. She's perfect. Adam crossed his arms, staring at the baby in the bassinet with a frown. What's so perfect about her? He grumbled. She looks like a bald monkey. That image hit me so suddenly I went silent. Okay, maybe, just maybe she did look a little. I cleared my throat. She just got here. Babies all look like this at first. She'll grow into it. Besides, she's obviously a stunning beauty in the making. You should have more faith in your genes. Adam huffed, looking away. We gave her my last name, Pickering. But Adam was the one who chose her first name, Bella. Bella Pickering. Watching him cradle our daughter so carefully, lulling her to sleep, I realized, this was it. This was all I had ever wanted. To meet him. To love him. And no matter what the world said, no matter the rules, the labels, the so-called logic, nothing about that love was wrong. We were more than our bodies, more than what society dictated. What we had, it was real. And it was ours. Epilogue. Lately, Adam Mahoney had been traveling for work. Before this, he had barely paid attention to his job, staying home to take care of me and the baby. But now that Bella was a little older, he was getting busier again. Every night, he used to hold me to sleep. I had gotten so used to having him beside me. So when I found out he'd be gone for about half a month, I felt, well, not just a little reluctant. Very reluctant. I'd lived in a boarding school since middle school. I had always thought of myself as independent. But ever since falling for Adam Mahoney, I had turned into someone clingy. On the surface, he seemed to be the dominant one, but the truth was, I was the one who asked for more. And he simply went along with it, because he knew what I wanted. The first night without him, I couldn't sleep. It was awful. Why was it this hard to be apart from him? It felt like something had been ripped from me, like a piece of myself had gone missing. I had never thought of myself as sentimental, but here I was, tossing and turning. Eventually, I grabbed my phone. It was late. I didn't expect him to reply, but I sent a message anyway. Me, husband, I miss you so much, loudly crying face. To my surprise, he replied instantly. Adam Mahoney, you want to see me? I didn't hesitate. Me, of course. Almost immediately, a video call request popped up. I accepted it in a heartbeat. And there he was, his upper body filling the screen, hair damp, water droplets still clinging to his skin. It looked like he had just come out of the shower. My face burned. I wished I could reach through the screen and pull him into a hug. I huffed. Come on, give me some time to prepare. You open the call like this and expect me to sleep after? Adam's lips twitched as if holding back a laugh. You don't like it? He teased. I can put a shirt on. No. I blurted out. I love it. This time he did laugh. I pouted. Why aren't you asleep yet? I thought if I texted you this late, you wouldn't even reply. Adam sighed. If you had messaged any later, I would have been asleep. Oh, then I guess my timing was perfect. I smirked. Especially since I caught him right after his shower. He raised a brow. And you? Why are you still up? You never stay up late. I swallowed the lump in my throat, my voice soft. I told you, I miss you. I miss you so much I can't sleep. When you hold me at night, yeah, it gets a little warm, but I always fall asleep so quickly. Now I'm alone and it's miserable. I have to hug a pillow instead. Adam pinched the bridge of his nose, letting out a small, helpless laugh. You love me this much? He muttered. That's a lot of pressure. I frowned. How does my love pressure you? He exhaled through his nose. Because now all I want to do is buy a ticket, fly home, and hold the idiot who can't sleep without me. But I can't. He sighed dramatically. And on top of that, you send me a message like that just to mess with me. How cruel. I scowled. I'm the one messing with you? You know I can't sleep without you, and you call me on video looking like this? I'm even more awake now. You have to fix this? Adam chuckled, like he had just thought of something. Then he got up, rummaged through something off-screen, and returned with a book. Lie down, he ordered. Close your eyes. Put your phone beside you. Why? I'll read to you. I obeyed without a second thought. His voice was deep, rich, the kind of sound that sent a shiver down my spine. Honestly, I wasn't even listening to what he was reading. I was just listening to him. And before I knew it, I was drifting off. The next morning, I woke up late, well past sunrise. I checked my phone and noticed that Adam hadn't hung up immediately after I fell asleep. He had waited, and only ended the call at a very particular time. After that night, we called each other every night. Sometimes he read to me. Sometimes he sang to me. Sometimes he told me stories. He never got tired of it. And I never got tired of listening. Maybe I just needed a little of his presence. His voice was a presence. His face was a presence. Just a little bit of him, and it felt like that missing piece of me had temporarily been filled. I craved every bit of his existence. The video calls became the second thing I looked forward to the most. The first? The day he'd come home. Before I knew it, his trip was almost over. I didn't know exactly when he'd be back, but I couldn't stop daydreaming about it. The sun was warm that afternoon, so I sprawled on the garden lounge chair, a magazine lazily covering my face. I got bored of lying down, so I got up and wandered aimlessly. The entire garden had been designed by Adam. And somehow, it perfectly matched my taste. It only proved one thing: he knew me. People always said that couples who spent a long time together would start to resemble each other. Maybe they were right. The longer we were together, the more we adapted to each other's preferences. Love had a way of changing people. A breeze swept through the garden, rustling the leaves. A sweet floral scent filled the air. It was nice, but it wasn't the scent I wanted. I closed my eyes and thought, for just a second, how nice would it be if this wind carried his scent instead? Fresh, sweet, calming. The kind of scent that made my heart ache in all the best ways. It was a ridiculous thought. God, I miss him. I shook my head at myself, then turned, and saw him. Adam Mahoney was standing there, smiling, arms open, wrapped in golden light. I didn't think. I ran into his arms. He caught me effortlessly, holding me tight. For a moment, neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. We both knew. I buried my face against his neck, inhaling greedily, like I had been starved for his scent. His pheromones carried the message loud and clear. I love you. And I'm home. The end.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.